In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Quirk, and he is heading up as a co-founder and head of marketing ScaleMatters. And essentially what ScaleMatters is doing, it provides software for SaaS companies, helping them to identify the non-productive sales and marketing spend. Very important. Actually, I have to bring that up here at the Pathmark folks as well. So we have to look where we're spending too much. So I'm very pleased to have Dan on the show and learn about what the folks are doing at ScaleMatters. So welcome.
Thanks, Lucas. Glad to be here.
Very cool. So maybe give me, a 360 overview. What is ScaleMatters all about?
Yeah, so we're a early stage tech company headquartered in just outside of DC in Maryland. And we were started in 2019. And some of a few of us co-founders had worked at a previous company together where we came in and the company had really high customer acquisition costs, growth had stalled, and really pipeline velocity had stalled as well. And we came in and we put in a data framework and then a go-to-market strategy that enabled us to bring down our cost of acquisition by about 70% and increase our speed from lead to deal by about 40% and kind of dramatically improve the direction of the company. And what we decided to do after that success, a couple of years later, we decided to productize our data model, and then we built on top of our data model a data visualization tool. And so ScaleMatters is basically a productized version of what we implemented at a previous company. And just more specifically, we're helping. We provide a go-to-market analytics platform for strategic revenue leaders. So CROs, heads of RevOps, CMOs at smaller companies, maybe CEOs, people who have to make the big decisions, and we're helping them make wise decisions around where to invest their sales and marketing dollars, which we're helping them identify what strategies are working, what people and teams are working on the sales side, if there's any process friction points in the customer journey, and also how their positioning and messaging is resonating with their prospects. And so it's all strategic stuff. We're not really pipeline focused. We're not just specifically, just attribution focused. We're focused on providing strategic leaders with analytics and insights to make major decisions.
Got you. And those insights are coming from all the different tools that those different teams would be using, or how should we imagine that?
Yeah, so all the teams use the tools that they use in their functional areas, whether market automation tools, sales acceleration tools. What our data model and visualization tool connect to are two, and specifically Salesforce and Gong. And so Salesforce is where we get all the performance and activity data from sales and marketing. Gong is where we get all of what we call the voice of prospect data. It's where all the calls are recorded, obviously, and we use the tracker functionality in Gong to set up trackers so we can capture key moments of the sales calls where prospects are talking about their challenges and goals. And then we ingest that data into our app, and we're able to see and cross-analyze how, based on what prospects say, do they have a likelihood of closing or not, a higher likelihood of closing or not closing? Does the profile of the prospects impact deal size? Do prospects mentioning different competitors impact deal size? So not only are we helping on the performance and activity side from an analytics perspective, but also we're weaving in this voice of prospect data, which is kind of what I think is kind of unique about what we're offering.
Very cool. Makes it very clear. Super interesting. So you mentioned CROs, sometimes even smaller company CEOs are the ones who are going to be benefiting, obviously making the decision. Now you're obviously in marketing, maybe tell us a little bit, how do people learn about ScaleMatters? What are the sort of, maybe high level, what are the channels that you guys are leveraging?
Yeah, so good question. I'll tell you, we just came out of beta and kind of released our version 1 of the product about 9 months ago. And so, we had a couple of early customers, and then we've gotten our customers since then, mostly through outbound prospecting. We had a few SDRs who were making outbound calls and emails and prospecting on LinkedIn to get our early meetings, and also through networking. So we believe that the the most important outcome of people who are of our customers is that they increase their growth rates and ultimately valuation. So we go through the investor community to get introductions to their portfolio companies because we help them at a really strategic level, which benefits the investors in the long run.
Very cool. I mean, we probably have a lot of marketers listening who are also like working on early stage companies, right? Like, maybe tell us a little bit, what would you think as sort of the main challenges when coming new to the game, right? In for the marketers in particularly, like what is maybe sort of the 2 or 3 key growth areas that you're focusing on at the moment?
Yeah, so I think number one is it's super difficult to get people to agree to meetings if outbound prospecting is your play, if nobody has an idea who you are. So one of the things that I probably would have done differently earlier is put more into brand. I mentioned when we were chatting before this call that we're starting a podcast. Probably would have done that a year ago if I had known the benefits of that, and probably would have started, driving organic social traffic through LinkedIn more earlier on. But that's stuff that we're just kind of like getting underway now. And I think it's going to be especially critical for startups because the reach on LinkedIn is unbelievable right now. And if you're actually providing helpful content, whether that's via webinars or podcasts or just sharing posts on there that are of great value, then you start getting attention for your company in indirect ways. You might get more followers for yourself as a marketer, but then because you're actually helping people, they start showing interest in your product. And so I think that those channels are super important. And I recommend everyone go follow Chris Walker from Refine Labs. He's an awesome marketer who's been really hammering the fact that the non-attributable sources of traffic are where a ton of the buying process goes on in the Slack communities, on LinkedIn, in word of mouth, and so you can't necessarily track traffic coming in from these third-party sources and the communities and things like that, but it is absolutely critical, especially in B2B tech.
Very cool. And the other question that is obviously on the mind of a lot of early stage marketers is, obviously traffic typically in early stage companies isn't necessarily skyrocketing, right? But there is obviously visitors coming. Like, how do you think about conversion optimization? Like, what role does it play? Is that in your mind something that comes in later in the game? Is that something that's important from the very beginning to nail message? Like, how do you think about that in your approach to the website in these more earlier days of the company?
Yeah, I mean, conversion optimization is actually my favorite part of marketing, and so it's actually I can't wait until we have more traffic so we can run more tests, to be honest. But in the early stages, yeah, it's difficult. Uh, Obviously, you can pay for the traffic, or you can play the long play and write a bunch of blog posts and try to get organic traffic that way. I know that's not news to anybody, but making sure that there are resources on your website that are specifically titled for specific roles that you're trying to reach, so that for us, I mean, when a chief revenue officer comes to our website, or a head of RevOps, which are our two main personas, if you will, I want to make sure that they see content that is titled just for them, or they see a calculator that resonates specifically for them. So I think providing helpful content, or solving providing a useful tool for a specific role is super important for an early stage startup, and not trying to do help everybody in the company, but just trying to at least provide some valuable resources for 1 or 2 people.
Mm. And being a marketer in that stage where you're at today, like, and maybe a tricky question, and a little bit suggestive as well. So feel free to work your way out of the question. But what I would be curious is, right? So if somebody in your situation, if you would have to focus only on one thing, like, would it be the marketing roadmap? Would it be new growth initiatives? Would it be nailing messaging? No, or would it be reporting? Like, where do you start in a situation like yours?
You mean at an early stage, where do we put most of our focus?
Exactly. Where do you turn first? Like, is it, roadmap and planning? Is it the specific initiatives? Is it the messaging? Is it, reporting to understand what's going on and improve from there? Like, where would you turn first?
Well, for our stage, well, I think it depends on what kind of company you're at and what market you're trying to go into. If you're going into a saturated a saturated market with where there are already buyers, then certainly there are already people who are searching for products like yours. So focusing on SEO or high intent advertising like Google Ads and trying to convert people quickly in that way would be more of a focus. For us, we're trying to tackle an existing market in a different way. And like there are tons of analytics tools for SaaS companies out there, but since we're purpose built just for sales and marketing and focused specifically on strategic insights and analytics, we need to change people's perceptions of and get people to move from their current way of thinking to understanding a new way of solving their pain points and challenges. So there's a ton of education for us that's gonna be going on in the coming months. And so our focus is putting out educational content on LinkedIn ads, and via webinars and podcasts. So we're just going to be flooding our target audience with useful content that provokes them to change their way of current thinking, and to get them to move from status quo to hopefully considering us. So that's where we're at. But it's just because we're trying to make people think differently about a problem. For other people, they already know they have a problem. They're looking for solutions, and it's just about capturing and converting. We're different. We're in a different place than that.
Super interesting. You brought up the webinars. Like, obviously, there's more and more teams decide to do webinars. Like, any insights, anything that you've learned to distribute webinars successfully?
I will have to get back to you on that. We're going to be going heavy on that starting in July.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot. This is super, super interesting, I think, for a lot of guys out there who are listening in, who are in your shoes, quite frankly, and listen to what you guys have been doing. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about yourself a little bit, because, in marketing, there is a lot of stuff to study and to learn. How do you decide which type of marketing content you actually, want to consume and listen to with all the noise, let's say, out there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's partially evolved as we have evolved in the phase of our company. So, 6 months ago when we were really trying to figure out our positioning, I was reading April Dunford's book on positioning, and lately we've been trying to nail. We're moving out of founder selling and hiring our first AEs. So everyone on the customer acquisition teams, we're reading the Challenger sale and Challenger customer, and so we can all get on the same page about that. So I think, and the other thing I'm doing is consuming a ton of podcast and webinar content on how to use LinkedIn properly as a company, and kind of the non-traditional funnels or non-attributable funnels, like the communities, and also podcasts and things like that marketers, we're not going to be able to track response to revenue on necessarily directly, but so because I know that's important, that's going to be important to our business. So it all depends on what stage you're at, and at least for me, what challenges I know we're going to face or we're currently facing. And then hopefully someday soon, we're getting a ton of traffic, and I can turn my attention back to conversion rate optimization. But that's just an example of something that we're not having conversion rate issues because we're not getting that much traffic right now, but hopefully soon.
Makes sense.
Yeah, in a previous job, I spent most of my time on conversion rate optimization, and I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
Very cool. Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, we'd love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Sure.
You brought up a couple of books in the interview. What's the last book that you read?
The last book that I read was Fanatical Prospecting.
Mm-hmm. What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Broadly, customer acquisition. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But more specifically, getting more meetings and figuring out how to simplify our messaging so that it's easier to communicate what we offer and have people to agree to learn more.
Mm-hmm. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing you want to have fixed for your role today?
Ask that again.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing you want to have fixed for your role today?
Well, I'm stumped.
You can get back to this one, or you can pass. We've got one wild card.
Maybe come back to it or pass. Go ahead.
Very good. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
I think the last thing that kept me awake was how we're gonna repurpose a lot of our pillar content into a bunch of different channels and make it relevant to a bunch of different channels and who I would need to be involved in that. That was the thing I was thinking about last night, at least. I went to bed.
Very cool. Very recent. Very recent. Very good. What's and with this one I'm very curious about, actually, specifically you know, because you're deep in
Actually,
the
I do know the technology answer now. So if you want to ask that question again,
very good.
and we can redo that again.
Very good. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing you want to have fixed for your role today?
Yeah, so I'd like to make it easier to do quizzes and calculators on my website. So I'm currently using a tool called Outgrow, and it's actually not bad. It's pretty nice, but yeah, I've my choices were either Outgrow at the time. I chose either Outgrow or trying to hire somebody who had some pretty advanced technical skills to build calculators in our website, and I don't really like either approach right now. I'd rather, because we use HubSpot as our website, and I'd like to actually to just have calculator ability inside of HubSpot, maybe inside the Forms tool or something, because trying to build calculators externally and then embed them and then integrate the data of people who have interacted with the calculator has not been easy.
Very, very interesting. Very cool. Good. Let's get to the last question then. If today would be your very first day, right, working on ScaleMatters, if you zoom back to the day when you guys were just getting started, what's the one advice that you would give yourself today?
Plan less and publish more.
Very good.
I know that's simple, but you can take it however you want to go. But do less planning and strategizing and just more acting.
Yep, makes a whole lot of sense. Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time with us today on Pathway Presents. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed, what's the one thing that they should remember about ScaleMatters?
I think that they should remember that if they've been stuck in cycles of having data that they can't trust in sales and marketing, and then it's quite possible they'll be making misleading decisions on bad data. And even if you have a nice visualization tool to look at, it's quite possible it's just looking at pretty pictures of garbage data. So get the data integrity right, and then everything else will fall into place.
Very cool. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathway Presents.
Thanks a lot, Lucas. It was a good time. Thank you.